Welcome to the Four Worlds podcast from Tomorrow's World Today. We're diving into the latest in tech, science, and sustainability, from nature's mysteries in the world of inspiration to the hands-on crafts of creation, the bold breakthroughs of innovation, and the scaled-up wonders of production. This is your ticket to the stories shaping tomorrow. Welcome to another edition of the Four Worlds podcast. Joining us today is Jessica Fridrich. Jessica is a photographer whose work celebrates the greatest artist of all time, which is nature. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Really good. How about you, Stephen? Thank you for having me.
Very good, and thank you for joining us. Before we really jump into your photography, just for the audience that maybe unfamiliar, if you want to just go over your work and kind of what you do to get things started, to familiarize everyone with you.
Sure. So I'm a professor of electrical engineering at Binghamton University. I do research in multimedia security and forensics. It's a lot of math, a lot of engineering, a lot of digital imaging too. So some of this background actually helps the artist in me.
Yeah, and that's what we have you in here for. I did see that with some of that helping the photography in you, and that's what we really wanted to focus on. We were really interested in your photography, and of course, it's about nature. You said it in your bio, the greatest artist of all time. I'd just like to jump in and start with some of those memorable moments or specific trips where the photography began to take precedence over the hike itself while you're out walking around in nature.
So I've been always taking pictures, going for family trips and documenting, where we've been and so on. And then it was back in 2012. What preceded this actually was a trip that I took, with my family, with the children, to show them the beauties of the Southwest. And I noticed a beautiful place in some of these brochures, basically. And it's called Paria Wilderness or Paria Plateau, also known as the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. And we were in a minivan. I so wanted to go there and take everybody there, but it required driving through sand and over rocks. And, there are just jeep trails to get to those places, kind of off-beaten path. So I postponed this for the next year, 2012. And I teamed up with my former PhD student. Before a conference we had in San Francisco, we spent a few days in Paria Wilderness. I wanted to go with someone because I was scared to go alone.
Right? I don't blame you. Just safer with someone else. Yeah.
But that was a transformative, experience for me, basically. This is when I really fell in love with the wild part of the Southwest, not visiting the national parks, but the off-beaten path places. They are beautiful. They are not as big. They are not as well known, but so much beauty. And this is when also I started asking the question of why I take a picture. And that led to the slow process of, rather than taking pictures while hiking, to hike to take pictures, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That was I really like that quote because it really puts things into perspective, and it makes nature really the main character, if you will, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And just speaking of the American Southwest, a majority and a lot of your work really focuses on that region. What is it about the twisted sandstone and the specific geology of these areas that continue to inspire your creative process after so many visits and after all of these years?
So it's not just sandstone, there's also limestone and granite, but right. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. All of them, all of the sands and all of the stones.
So, if I may continue with, what I said before, asking the question of why you take a photograph. If you really ask yourself why you take a photograph, it kind of holds you accountable. Like, why am I taking this picture? What is the purpose? And once you start asking this question, it naturally weeds away a lot of bad pictures. And you start focusing on the story behind the picture. You want to communicate emotional states, emotions. You want to tell whoever is going to be looking at your picture, perhaps what you felt when you were there. And you want to create a connection with the nature, basically, with that awesome place. Mm-hmm. You don't want a photograph to just show an awesome rock. I noticed when I was showing pictures from that 2012 trip that people were clicking through the pictures, but they stopped at some of them. Some of them worked and they made a connection. Their eyes wandered around the picture. They asked questions. They wanted to go back to that picture. They engaged basically. So it's that engagement that I'm seeking basically in taking the pictures. The twisted sandstone is essentially a means to engage. Mm-hmm. It could be other things. It could be northern lights, for example. It could be portrayed in so many different fashion. And I think I'm not the only one when I say I'm fascinated by nature and what it has created in the American Southwest. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are fascinated by this. It kind of brings us back to that primal feel of connecting with nature and being just standing in an awe in front of something that took millions of years to form, and wondering how it's even possible that something like this happened in an organic fashion. It's just that fascination that I think it's actually very common that makes people want to come back.
Yeah, you're right. And just speaking of kind of off the beaten path, I think that plays into it as well. Some of these places that you've been to that some people may not have the opportunity to see or visit. And I think that really helps people engage and just helps that kind of curiosity. And you're absolutely right. That is such a common thing for people just wanting to be and engage in nature.
Yeah, I go to disconnect, basically. Mm-hmm. I go to so that I can be in the moment. And it's kind of cleansing the mind. It's like a reset button almost.
Right.
Because you don't have cell phone signals, and when you scout a place, you walk through the place, you imagine compositions, you imagine what it's going to look like when it's sunset, after sunset, at night, what it's going to look like in 6 months when the sun is at a different location, the geometry will be different. And it's like a problem solving. It's not really too far from doing technical research, because you come to a fantastic rock formation and you want to solve the problem of how to communicate it in a meaningful way, how to communicate that. Sometimes it's about how to isolate the subject, or perhaps how to not show the subject as a whole, and how to incorporate other subjects in the foreground and switch it around. Sometimes you want to switch the hero to be the supporting actor rather than the main actor. So many different tricks, many different problem-solving strategies that you can use. When I'm in the zone, time stops. It's fascinating. You execute pictures or execute a picture, and 2-3 hours pass, and you feel like it was like 10 minutes, basically.
Right.
It's when you are in the moment, and it's a very convincing experience. You kind of connect with that place.
Yeah, everything just kind of adds up, and what with all of that in mind, thinking about the story you want to tell, how the viewer's going to react to it. I'm sure that what you reference as special light, you emphasize that and waiting for it, which is often rare and unpredictable. How would you describe this specific type of light that you look for, and how does it change the way that you perceive? I have the desert landscape written here, but realistically, any location that you're at in capturing and photographing.
It's a lot of fun and frustration as well.
Right.
You have to come back so many times. Sometimes you scout a place, you figured out a good composition, and you go like, oh, I have to be here near solstice or something like that, or near equinox, or I need something to close the picture from above, and I just don't have that now. So you have to come back maybe 20, 30 times and hope that, one day it's going to happen. I try not to create things in Photoshop. I try to have them as complete as possible within the camera. And that just means that you have to come back many, many times. I look for light that helps create the story, basically, that helps capture the idea that's behind the picture. It's an important element in the image, and it's not always present. So sometimes what works is actually in the middle of the day, but most of the time it's at sunset or right after sunset during the blue hour. Sometimes you have to shoot at night and supply your own light to help isolate the subject. at night, it's kind of like a studio shot at that point because you
Right.
provide the light. You can still use the residual glow from the horizon. You can still
Mhm.
use moonlight, perhaps. You can light paint. You can use low level lighting. There are many different techniques, and how you approach this is what is the main thing you want to have in the picture. So it varies so much. Sometimes you seek that golden, like the last, they call it
Mhm.
the last bite, right before the sun hits the horizon.
Right.
Sometimes you want, I call it the sunset glow, which is a very soft, non-directional light that gives you what you really need. It's a lot of fun to work with light.
It is, yeah. I come from more of a television background, but so it's not so much we're shooting nature, but this still one of the most important things is lighting. No matter what you're doing, whether you're doing photography or videography, all of that light is such an important piece of storytelling that I don't know if a lot of people would get or understand or even know of. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, and you also mentioned those visiting places 20, 30 times. I mean, dozens of times before you got the shots that you wanted. How do you kind of handle those, I put in quotes, failed trips, but I'm sure you look at that a little differently and wouldn't call them failed trips where the weather doesn't cooperate. And, does that process of waiting make that photograph a little more meaningful or special?
Of course, it makes it special when things finally fall into place. Most of the time, I don't bring a great shot back. And it also depends what you call great. We have
Right.
our own bars, for this. And most of the time, I don't get the light. But at the same time, you have to, I mean, you can't let yourself be too frustrated by that because if it frustrates you, then it's probably not something you should be doing in the first place. And
Sure.
maybe you should just enjoy the place rather
Yeah.
than, and so sometimes I just go into that mode. It's still an awesome place to be,
Mm.
even though I didn't get the shot. And sometimes you come back with a completely different shot because you have to be open to other possibilities.
Yeah.
Planning versus improvisation. I mean, you have to balance that. You can't come with too rigid of a structure.
Mhm.
I'm going to do this no matter what.
Right.
There are other opportunities usually that you can come up with, or ideas for if you revisit in the spring, you come back in 3 months. So it
Yeah.
still is a useful trip, as long as you are open, basically.
Yeah. Right, and that's why when the words "failed trip" came out of my mouth, I'm thinking, is it really a failed trip? Even if you don't get the photograph that you want, you're still in most likely a beautiful location. So you really just take that and you mark that down as a win on its own. And before I don't want this question to lose me, but you did mention the difference between planning and improvisation because you mentioned a little bit before your background in science and research. How much of your shooting style is driven by that technical planning, like using charts or weather tracking versus following your gut artistic instinct when you're out in the field?
So I use both, and it's
Sure.
it's it's good to have a plan,
Hmm.
and it's good to be ready to abandon that plan as well. Like some of the most technical shots I took required really a lot of planning and to get a permit to the famous formation called the
Mm.
wave, which is notoriously difficult to get permits to. And I needed that for like around mid-September so that there is a puddle in the wave, so that I have a reflection, so that the Milky Way is in the right position. There will be partially light supplied by the moon, which will be crescent, that I'm going to make use of. And on top of it, I need that permit. And I
Mhm.
need to hike in alone into that wilderness and be scared of all the sounds.
Right.
It was a lot of fun. So I did execute that shot, and it was the most difficult one to execute for all these multiple reasons. At the same time, sometimes I come with a plan and I realize that there are other better opportunities and you just
Mhm.
execute them. So it's part of the fun
Yeah.
to just be open. And I don't really use like star charts because I know the sky really well. All I need is to just stand in that place. I can imagine what it would look like with constellations.
Mhm.
I've always been fascinated by astronomy.
Yeah.
So it's there. I don't need to use. I actually don't use many apps or charts. I just go with the flow, and just experiencing the place and being observant. And improvisation and serendipity is extremely important in photography. I would say most pictures I take are not planned.
That's I had a feeling that was kind of the case because, like you said, it's so good having a plan, but nature doesn't always have a plan, and you have to react to that.
Yep.
But just going back to the wave and that process of getting the permit and the long trek and being alone out there in an unfamiliar area, was that when you finally got the shot you wanted? Was that one of the more memorable ones and most rewarding one, would you say? Or was it kind of, you were like, I got the shot and it wasn't worth the permit or whatever? What was your thought process there?
Oh, I was super excited actually. It was definitely a memorable moment. It was a very special moment, and it looked way better than what I imagined. And what I was surprised by, actually, is that when I looked at the LCD screen, it looked amazing. And I mean, to have it technically correct, you have to take multiple exposures and do things to cancel out noise and all that, because you shoot at high ISO setting and all this. But the image basically looks like what it looks on the LCD monitor. And it's a magical moment because it's completely dark. You just have a crescent moon. You see the stars. The moon is kind of blocked by the rock formation itself. And then you point your camera. You can't really compose too well. I mean, you have to use flashlight so that you see what you're shooting, basically. But it doesn't look like anything. You basically take a picture of a black rectangle. But then after 10 seconds, let's say, or 15 seconds, something appears on the monitor, and it just takes a breath away. It has all the colors. It has the Milky Way. It has everything in it. It's just because you light paint portion of it, some of it is given by the moon. A long exposure gives you the Milky Way. And it all came together that for this particular setting, ISO and exposure and everything, it just was well balanced. The picture was almost good as it was, considering that you just pointed your camera to a darkness. It's just unbelievable. This was one of the moments that I just realized how much I love, astrophotography, because it gives you the biggest difference between what you can see and what the camera can see, and it's fun to try to imagine what it would look like. Right. So I was pretty excited from this experience, actually. And at that moment, you just don't think about, there's coyotes somewhere and maybe mountain lions, and rattlesnakes. You're just in the moment, and you have such a high, such a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
So some of these are very memorable, like this one. Some of these are, I got the shot, kind of, and that's probably not going to work too well. And sometimes you just, get a momentary decision, you just realize, oh, geez, this is actually a good idea to do, given the moon, given everything. And then you shoot it, and that excites you on a different level because it's not premeditated. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, I love to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking to people that have a clear passion for what they do and that have fun with what they do, even after all of these years. So I really appreciate how your perspective on it. And you mentioned, this is kind of just out of my own curiosity, you were talking about the natural elements that you have to deal with, like you said, the coyotes, the rattlesnakes, the whatever's lying in the darkness or what have you. I like to give people a little peek behind the curtains when I interview artists and just kind of put in perspective how difficult the process actually is, because they only see the photo itself. What are some of those more bizarre or unique experiences that you've had with some of the elements that you had to deal with?
The desert can be pretty rough, and I love to shoot during the monsoon season when you have clouds. You have water. Water could be used for reflections. If like on sandstone, it can hold. So you have additional elements that you can have in the picture. The light is softer. You have higher humidity than usual. You have awesome thunderstorms, but with them also comes the danger of flash floods, and those are very common in the desert. And if you are just, out in the wilderness, they can surprise you, and you have to be vigilant, as to what you're going to do, and make sure that you don't put yourself in a position that could be dangerous. So what was interesting is that there was also at the wave, actually. One day I had to go through 3 flash floods on the way back. I had to wade through them. They were not really too bad, so that I could just walk through them. I didn't, I wasn't afraid that I would be taken away by the stream. Sure. And then you go back to your Jeep, and then you try to get out of that area when you realize that the mud is extremely slippery. It's that really fine Utah, northern Arizona mud. It's very slippery. Then you come to a place that normally you can drive through in a minivan, and there's a raging river there. So you can get cut off, and then you have to realize that, what is another way to get out of here, basically? Or do I need to wait it out? So you need to have food with you, water, and all these things. I also carry a beacon, satellite beacon. So it's not just the wildlife. Actually, wildlife, usually they say that people shouldn't or don't need to be afraid, as long as you don't step on a rattlesnake, which I almost did once.
Oh, no. But see, those are the things you have to think about.
It's the elements. The pictures are the best when you have weather happening. So when a photographer said that they had terrible weather, it means that they had blue sky and long winds.
Right. It's a great point. It's a great point. Oh my God. I love giving people those little behind the scenes look, what photographers really have to deal with. So that's great.
Well, it's part of the fun. I actually, because of this, I started liking off-roading, and actually did some rock crawling in Sedona on the Broken Arrow Trail, and had a lot of fun actually doing that. It's contagious. Be careful. You try it once, and either you hate the experience, or you love it and you want to do it again.
Yes. It is. That's another danger of it. Forget the rattlesnakes. You might get addicted to the experience.
It can be very addictive.
Yeah. Jessica, this was great, and I'd like to wrap up just a little bit. You've been to so many extraordinary places. What are some of those bucket list areas that you want to explore and capture the beauty of?
So it will probably surprise you. I don't really have any bucket places. Okay. I know a lot of photographers do have bucket places. I just make decisions on, which area to explore and look around for opportunities.
Yeah.
But I do have one desire, basically. I would love to capture some of the Southwest formations with northern lights.
Oh, yeah.
I know some of the storms can be intense enough so that you can see them brightly even from Arizona, basically.
Right.
It's extremely rare, but perhaps one day I will be able to. I have a favorite place to go, which is called White Pocket in Arizona. Would love to get a shot from White Pocket with northern lights. So I would love to have this. For now, I shoot northern lights mostly for the northern lights themselves, or kind of creating abstract images from them rather than landscape shot with northern lights. But would love to have some nicer pictures than that, basically, or different kind of pictures. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to following along and hoping you get those shots. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? We're wrapping up. This has been great, but I just want to kind of give you the floor to let people know what else you have going on, whether it's coming up or where to find you.
So I post my work. It's on jessicafridrich.com, which has some of my portfolio, basically. I sell pictures too. I usually I don't make them, but they are C prints, chromogenic prints, up to 40 by 60 inches in size. I've sold quite a few of these. I had an exhibition here at Binghamton at the Brunelli Gallery. So I have some of my customers, and some of them are my friends. They keep telling me how much they enjoy the pictures when they hang the wall in their houses. So if you are interested, I can sell you an image.
There you go. Look into it, because your work is great, and I encourage anyone to check it out. And and I'm sure they'll love it, and they'll buy an image, because I could see it looking great on a wall.
Yeah, I have a mini gallery in Canap at the Escobar's restaurant, a Mexican place, where I put up a few of my pictures in there for people to enjoy. They themselves have pictures, in the houses. So they are awesome. The sea prints are awesome because the chromogenic print absorbs the ambient light and throws it back at you. And depending on what the ambient light is, the image can look in so many different ways. If it's, a cold daylight, or if it's a warmer light towards the end or beginning of the day, or the inside lighting, they look amazing. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be like a sales,
right. No, you got to sometimes. You got to.
You ask, where they can see my work. So, so I'll be visiting Southwest again, this year. Actually, I'm planning a trip soon. I'm also planning trips around Northern Lights. I flew to North Dakota just for 2 days to catch a big storm. And that was truly amazing experience, actually.
Yeah. No, that's amazing, and I like I said it before. I commend your hard work, and I appreciate you taking your time and telling me all about it. This was a lot of fun, Jessica. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, Stephen.
Of course. That is all the time we have. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Four Worlds Podcast. Until next time, you can catch up on the latest innovations shaping our world at tomorrowsworldtoday.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.